they are able to understand others speaking in English, they are unable to respond appropriately. Or has any one of you come across students struggling to express themselves in English and failing to figure out exactly what to say and answer in a simple basic English conversation? Students complain that when they try to speak in English, they search vigorously in their minds for words and phrases, that they feel as though they're looking for a needle in a haystack. Then, sadly at the end, they either stammer or lack confidence. Well, it happens a lot. And this is where teaching speaking techniques come into place. But before we speak about speaking and teaching speaking techniques, in order to obtain speaking fluency, we have to bear in mind the basic principles of teaching conversation in class. Well, first of all, we have several strategies that we can weave in and techniques that we can weave into each lesson to actively participate, make students participate and make them confident in their speaking. First of all, get to know your learners. There's nothing more uncomfortable than being in a conversation or on a topic that either you intensely dislike or have nothing to say on. So, what can we do? Have them in groups and ask them to write agreed on topics of their interest or what they like. Then, collect them. They don't have to be academic topics, they can be anything. Then the instructor can just draw one of these index cards and use them during discussion time. When we ask students to discuss, I think it's best to introduce some key phrases and words related to the topic so that it can help them. Students may not be participating because they simply don't have the vocabulary to enter a specific conversation. But it is best to teach phrases, not just single words. Second, it's best to make fluency a top priority. What I find in students when I ask them to talk is vital when teaching conversation in English. But we should emphasize to students that it is if our meaning is coming through and your classmates can understand and respond, then that is what we want in the end. When teaching speaking, it's important also to point out the correct body language, pronunciation, intonation, voice tone, pitch and pace, and to point out that if they don't follow the correct intonation and the body language, the message may be misunderstood. Next, we have to agree on a conversation class code of conduct. You see, when you spark up a discussion in class, students sometimes, sort of argue with each other, and the discussions can get quite heated. So, we should include some basic rules, such as don't use aggressive language, don't interrupt when other learners are speaking, respect the opinions of others. Racist language is not tolerated, and all learners should be given the opportunity to share their ideas. And correction should be sensitive. Another tip regarding correction. Sometimes we do want to debate and we do want students to oppose each other and speak up their own minds. They may not completely agree with the other person's point of view. So what can we do? We can introduce the concept of playing the devil's advocate. By doing this, the learners can oppose the views of their peers without causing offence. Then we have teaching both formal and informal conversational skills. There are specific strategies for entering, extending, and ending conversations, both formally and informally. Now, these differences have to be pointed out to the students. Too often, conversations fall flat because the participants don't know the conversation strategies. In addition, there's a difference between everyday conversation and academic conversation. Conversational partners have to know the different strategies for introducing the topic, drawing each one out. And also, it's kind of, you build up a conversation. It's not like asking questions and answers, but how to follow up questions, to keep a discussion moving forward, asking for opinions and advancing their own, and giving examples. Of course, I'm sure, as educators, you do have ideas of many activities that you can give to students, such as discussions, role play, conversation, describing, spotting the difference. All these you can help students to talk in class. Of course, talking time is really essential for students in speaking class. The minimum, they said, it's 20% for the teacher and the rest is for the students. So that's why, as educators, when we give talking time and when the students are talking, we should sort of hold ourselves back and be careful not to correct every error the student does, or otherwise the student will lack confidence in the end. What we do want is fluency, but we don't have to correct each and every error and each and every alphabet, each and every letter. Also, we have other activities for teachers that they can do. Communication games, prepared talks, questionnaires, formal debates and dialogue. All these are speaking activities. We have techniques to weave speaking in the classroom, of course, as you have seen before. Here are other techniques also that I've used. Having a small group or pair work. Conversation occurs in small, not large groups. Having students work in small groups or pairs is usually more productive for a number of reasons. They are less self-conscious and they have more chance to speak up. And it will help them develop their own conversation skills. But when doing pair work, it's best every time and then to encourage students to rotate partners. Also, we have employing the coffee house technique, getting the students using of pictures and making up a story. We can make use of magazines and newspaper articles. It's very useful for expressing opinion and ideas and creating and debating topics. Here, another example is a whodunit, a detective story. A whodunit is one of the best games. It creates humour, excitement in the classroom. Here we have employing the coffee house technique. Now, the basics of conversational English evolve from pair interaction. You can create the same evolution in your classroom. the best approach is to make it as practical and close to life as possible. Transform the classroom into a coffee shop by bringing in a few coffee cups. Make the environment more casual. We can set friends with similar interests. Let the coffee talk begin. Guide them through the conversation. Or better still, allow your students to choose the topic and let the conversation move naturally. One of the best techniques that I have found is watching public speakers and watching public speaking examples. For example, we have Toastmasters, TED Talks. There are a wide variety of TED Talks that can be quite beneficial for EFL students. Toastmasters are quite interesting in delivering their speech too. Ask students to watch Toastmasters competition. Listening to public speakers delivering their speech also. One of my favourites that I tell students to listen and just watch the reaction and how that person answers the questions that are directed to him, however it may evoke, is Adil El-Jubeir, of course, and many others. Students can imitate them and then they will have their own style. Or you can have your own competition, your own speaking competition. I have found, a few years they have been doing this, a Value My Word competition, which is done in the English department in the North Sector of the Ministry of Education here in Jeddah. They have this speaking competition every year, and it's open to all schools in Jeddah, and more than 100 schools participate in such a speaking competition. Next, we have incorporating technology. Technology is developing in the digital age at a fast rate, that it's important to integrate it in the education system. Devices such as laptops, mobiles, tablets are so commonly used that it's important for students to learn to use them to their advantage and development. But the thing is, in incorporating technology in the learning process, everyone has a computer, so what? Most students have mobiles, so what? The thing is, incorporating technology in the learning process is that we have to focus on the innovation. It's almost never relaxing. The answer is to listen to English as much as possible, to speak as much as possible, to get exposed to the language as much as possible. Teaching conversation and speaking, and to be able to convey your message to the others and convey your and speak up your opinion is not an easy task. It has to live up to the standards of improved academic success and financial value. Conversation and speaking skills should be taught on a sliding scale as students progress from one level to another. So, finally, don't expect the fire of conversation to erupt. Your students will thank you for providing the space to make it possible. I believe, as educators, we can help students towards speaking fluency, but that has to be built on a sturdier foundation and careful planning. I hope that this presentation will be of value to all, and thank you for listening.